Hello, happy Sunday to everyone. A little Aretha Franklin felt appropriate to start today. I want to thank everyone that's joining us here in live of our participants and also those that are joining us on YouTube. I'm very excited today to have both Khadijah Queen and the SIG board Jillian Weise with us, as well as our ASL interpreters, Rory and Mac. It's always a privilege to work beside you. So thank you for joining us today as well. The cyborg Jillian Weise is a poet, video artist, and disability rights activist. They are the author of The Amputee's Guide to Sex, The Book of Goodbyes, The Colony, and their essays have appeared in Granta, the New York Times, and one of my personal favorites happened to be in Tin House, Why I Own a Gun. I highly encourage everyone, if you can, to find that. It's one of my favorite essays we published while I was working there for the magazine. And of course, we have Khadijah Queen, the author of 6 books, including one of my favorite titles. I'm a big titles person, so I'm So Fine, A List of Famous Men, and What I Had On, and of course, Anodyne. And Khadijah might have a little bit of a hoarse voice. We had our first ever Tin House karaoke online experience last night, and Khadijah definitely took the crown. It was a treat to equally as talented a writer as you are a singer. So it was a pleasure to hear you sing last night, and it's a pleasure to pass over the stage to Jillian and Khadijah. Thank you.
Thank you,
so
Lance.
much. It was really fun. Karaoke is like probably one of my favorite things. So I think that ought to happen more often, even during quarantine. Like we made it work. That's what's happening. Jillian,
Khadijah.
thank you for doing this with me. I'm so happy to like just be chatting with you.
Well, thank you for letting me parachute in. I want to do a quick access statement, image descriptions, acknowledge that we do have ASL interpreters, and thank you, Tin House, for making that happen. Their names are Rory and Mac. I'm guessing people are familiar at this point because there's been a weekend. I also am I'm a white woman. I am wearing a ridiculous zipper collar that goes up to my ears and all around with like a black tank top that I got from Depop. I didn't know about Depop. You have to talk to Gen Z about Depop.
I will ask my teenagers.
Yes, I'm in an office, and that's my image description. Also, want to say if you feel like you want to stretch or leave or be comfortable, however you join us in this virtual space, feel free to do that. And I also want to acknowledge blind writers who can't read the chat. So
yes, we will be like reading the chat at times so that we make sure that it's accessible to blind readers.
Yeah. And at the same time, sometimes neurodiverse writers only want to use the chat. So we recognize that as well. Yeah. Did I miss anything, Khadijah?
I suppose I should give my image description. I have my hair in long braids that are gray, black, and white to match how my hair is growing in during this pandemic. And I have on silver hoop earrings and a Levi's denim shirt. And I'm in front of 2 giant bookcases that are full of books and some framed images of poems and my little boy when he was a little boy and now he's large. Not a little boy, a grown man. So yes, that's what's happening on the screen along with Rory and her fly turquoise frames doing the ASL interpretation. So we do have like we did make like a little Google Doc with what we wanted to talk about in terms of pleasure. Jillian, I don't know if you want to start us off. You want me to start off? How you want to do it?
We are prepared, y'all. We have taken this all the way to the Google Doc, and Khadijah has an awesome first question about fighting. What is your first question? Oh, pleasure of fighting.
The pleasure
of fighting. Yeah. Do you want to go first or?
Sure, I can. I did not really take pleasure in fighting until I got older and learned how to use my words. Although maybe that's like a little bit of denial. I was talking to somebody yesterday on the phone about being in my 20s in the military, and also like just being a teenager and having to fight boys because they would be all up in my grill. And then like I had to clothesline a dude once for grabbing me, had to like punch somebody in the gut. Got in fights with other sailors, had to be like held back, had others protect me. But when it comes to writing and poetry, I think the pleasure of fighting is, and I think I'm gonna go out of order now, but like is in correcting.
Yeah.
And the sort of pleasure of correcting and turning that into the pleasure of being corrected. So instead of it being like this thing that's contentious, if you made a mistake, having it be a pleasure to like fix it, to be held accountable, to have that accountability be something that's a pleasure to engage in. It's not like a thing that separates you from others or like puts you to the side if it's not harmful, like in a visceral, awful, irrevocable way, but just like in terms of argument, literary argument. Correction is a pleasure. Fighting for that correction is a pleasure. Using language to do so is a pleasure.
100%, 100%. I'm conflict averse myself. I am an adult child of alcoholics. Yeah, for sure. And so I'm the one who's like on tippy toes, making sure that everything is okay. But on the page, oh, please, let's go. And mainly because I keep seeing poets act like it's the 16th century with Sir Philip Sidney, who said the only two ways to use a disabled person in a poem. First of all, why are you using anybody in a poem? I don't know. But if you're going to, he said, you either use the disabled figure to laugh or to cry. And not much has changed. I mean, that statement of his still nets Frank Bedard, it nets Marie Howe, it nets Maggie Smith. It's as though they didn't get anything since the 16th century when it comes to the portrayal of the disabled subject in a poem. So, yeah, I'm on the page. I'm on the page talking back to poets like that. The other thing that I love about fighting, and this is privileged, right? Because I have full professorship tenure. I'm white. I'm like middle class. I have not privilege in that I'm disabled. I'm bisexual and relationship anarchist in like a high monogamy couple centric culture. But since this is where I'm at, I just fight on the page on my Etsy. I gotta show y'all how I'm fighting on the page. Some Crips were like, we have a manifesto, but we want to stay anonymous because we're youngins. Will you publish it on your Etsy? I was like, yes, I will. So,
oh yes. Can we put
Cripping
that
the manifesto? What is it? What did they call it? Get your shit together, Ables. For sale, $5. Oh, I should put the link. I'll put the link up. But yeah, that's a fight. I love, and there's pleasure in it. Oh my God. There is so much pleasure in taking it to the page. Like you were saying, Khadijah, language, fighting in language. Yeah.
Thank you for putting that in the chat. Yes, I think I'm So Fine is for sure doing that in a, I don't know that it's like confrontational. It's just like matter of fact. I think in the newer work that I'm making with the memoir I've been working on about my time in the military, there certainly is, and I'll read some of that at the reading on Monday, but there certainly is the talking back and ranty pleasure of saying the thing that doesn't get said and refusing to be afraid of what someone might think, what they might say or might do in the face of your calling out this problematic shit.
Yeah, because we are nice in poetry land. Oh my goodness. You got to be nice.
And that can get taken advantage of.
Yeah, because you got to win a prize. You got to get a job. You need some health insurance. like there's like this pervasive, is it pleasure to be nice? I don't know.
Sometimes it's a pleasure to be nice when it's received with kindness and it's not
Yeah.
taken advantage of.
Mhm.
But I find it as I get older, my 40s, we do have that privilege of being cantankerous
Yeah.
and not having to placate folks.
Yeah.
So yeah, having a more comfortable, less precarious financial and professional position does give you the privilege to be a little snarkier. But I do like take pleasure in young folks doing it, and I
Yeah.
try to do my best to advocate for them.
Yeah. Well, Anne, you said something to me when you visited out here, where I was going off on some things. I was like, I cannot believe this, that, this enough with the poetry business.
Yeah.
And you were like, Jillian, you know that the young generation is going to be saying this about us. And we're going to have to like revise some things.
We will
And I'm
have to
like, I will
correct
revise.
ourselves.
I will.
Yeah.
I will revise. Yeah. So to join your statement about the next generation, both supporting them and when they say, no, that didn't sit right in that poem, what are you doing? Thinking about it instead
That's
of
right.
what it feels like the generation above does, which is like, we just ignore. We just ignore.
Smash it down,
Yeah.
silence it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
fuck that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can we talk
Totally.
about the pleasure of cussing? Just
Yes.
momentarily. I don't know how not to do it. I've like tried to like be professional, like reduce the number of times I say the F word, but it feels most pleasurable when I let myself say fuck it.
Yes. The pleasure of the profane. Yes.
Yes.
I
Yes.
love to. I cuss like a sailor. I feel like I'm the visitor here, so I'm on my best behavior for Tin House.
Well, I'm gonna push that a little bit to like move us to our next little section, which was the pleasure of language and invention. And you mentioned like making fun of non-disabled people.
Yes, I love to make fun of non-disabled people. I love to make fun of them because, um, well, there's just joy in it. There's a joy in it. It took me a long time to get there. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
let's see. That's probably why. I was raised in a you are not disabled. You are super abled. You are exceptional. You are very special. We do not use the word disabled in our household. Like that's where I come from. So it's not like I had crip consciousness until later in life. And I took everything very seriously in regards to disability, like very seriously. And I thought the non disabled people were right about everything in my 20s, including that I should be writing books for them. And so,
Woo!
yeah, it took me a long time to figure out they're not my audience. They're not my exclusive audience. And actually, maybe they're not my audience at all. But so now that I'm here in my 30s with a disability justice consciousness, thanks to a whole bunch of scholars and writers and thinkers, and frankly, disabled people outside the academy,
Mm-hmm.
like Crip Hop, like people who have been making art without any kind of academic anything. Yeah, now it's real fun to make fun of the pleasure of making fun of the non-disabled gesture, the non-disabled pose, the non-disabled, um, like, look at us, we went out of our way to do like basic level shit for you. Aren't you so grateful? It's like, wow, they're so cute. They're so
Right.
yeah.
Right. And I think that's where my pleasure in that goes, is in doing the most to like make inclusion the default, like
Yeah.
disability as the center.
Yeah.
Going back off of, Black women who put themselves in the center of scholarship versus, white males at the center of it.
Yeah.
But like disability at the center, so then that means everyone else benefits. So,
Absolutely.
and right.
I think
And
that's lost. A lot of times it's like, oh, I gotta do all this extra stuff and
it's not extra, it's baseline.
No, at the beginning of the plague, I made a call for people to just like transcribe talks and poetry readings and put them up on Google Drives publicly and make them available. Of course, the non-disabled like, I can't do that. My God, my poems, they haven't been copyrighted yet. New Yorker won't take them. Oh my God. And it's like, no one is watching. The New Yorker is not watching your Google Drive. They aren't. And it would have been better. I mean, there was like no purchase on the idea, but it would have been really great to have an archive of every single poetry reading that had taken place during a plague that you could just go read. It would have been a library. We declined to make, so yeah, and it wouldn't have just been
the absence of institution. Exactly, but the absence of institutions makes it seem less official. But what is an institution but something that a group of people made?
Yes.
So the idea that disability is a space of invention, I think also gives me joy and pleasure because it's necessary.
Yeah. The idea that disability, because we're always inventing things out of necessity anyway. Yeah, absolutely. Trying to think of what else. Wait, where are we, Khadijah? Are we on pleasure and
we're on, I'll be out of order as hell, girl. So I'll be out of order. So we're on language and invention.
Out of order.
And we didn't put a whole lot of notes in there.
No, we didn't.
What I said was that exclusion is passe.
Say again.
Exclusion is passe.
Oh yeah.
It's
not
cool.
It's not cool at all. But here's my thing. Poetry and creative writing in general, we know it's not cool for a lot of marginalized identities. But the non-disabled among us haven't gotten the memo that is also not cool in regards to access. What is that about?
I think it's about work. So I think it's seen as extra work.
Yeah.
So until it is seen as like as much a baseline as finding a venue, organizing the tech, gathering the readers, until it's seen as baseline as that, then people are going to perceive it as extra work. But it's really not. And so we have to just keep saying that.
Yeah.
It needs to be baseline.
And it's word of mouth. I think maybe you're responsible for this reading I went to. I love this poet, Alicia Mountain.
Yes.
I went to her reading. Was there ASL? No. But what did Alicia Mountain do to make it accessible? Dropped links constantly. I'm reading this poem. Here's the text. I'm reading this poem. Here's the text. I was like, whoa. Like I had not even thought of that idea as a hack to access,
Yes.
It's not even that hard because your poems are online anyway, usually.
That's right. And choosing according to what's already available or making yourself a Google Drive, as you mentioned, and putting the poems there so folks can do it, can access that.
Yeah.
I'm going to put Alicia's name, and Alicia uses she or they pronouns. Okay. Alicia Mountain.
She's awesome. Her book, High Ground Coward, am I right? Whoa.
That's right.
So good.
Yes, I'm going to put High Ground Coward.
Yes.
In the chat as well. Yes, and I know Alicia's working on another book, but a friend of mine, a person who I count as a friend and love dearly.
And was that a conversation like between y'all, or did she just do it?
Alicia's just dope like that.
Okay. Yeah. Because sometimes it takes it for me, someone saying like, hey, Jillian, this is what we're all doing. The last time it happened, I was using the word, I don't know what was I was using some word and they were like, we're off that word. Oh, ability, like has the ability to, in various, and the disabled young were like, hey, we're not using ability anymore like that. Like pick Pick another word. Pick
All
any other
right,
word.
get us together.
Yes. I was like, oh, damn, we just scratched that entire word for a minute. Okay, let's do it. Let's find another word. We're poets.
I think that's a good segue to our next subject, which was the pleasure of self-determination.
Yes.
And I put centering the self as pleasure, and you put victory as pleasure. Do you want to say more about that?
Yes. First of all, it's a long journey. I think I told y'all already a bit about the journey. But the victory of finally saying, oh, I really am a cyborg. Like my leg is a computer. I have plugged into walls before to get a charge. Ontologically, this is different than a non-cyborg. And I started writing about it in the New York Times in 2010, but then it was weird. It was like some disabled people I respect said, this is a phase you're going through and you're going to grow out of it. And I was like, maybe they're right. But now it's 2020. Honey, I grew into it. I just grew all the way into it.
Yes.
And I think the more and more I had to deal with insurance companies, leg makers, big tech, legs. What is my leg, and can my leg be this leg? Obviously, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's a huge victory. Finding the pronoun "psi" as in "cy" and being like, oh, I go by "psi" now, and yeah, because I cannot differentiate gender from disability. There's no joy there for me to say, well, my gender is over here and my disability is over here. Like, no,
Right. You're a whole person.
Yeah, they're constitutive. So that's been so awesome and fun and a relief, because the only people telling me really, other than that one moment of critical theorists, God bless them, saying it's a phase, was non-disabled people. They don't want disabled people to be cyborgs. No, because that's like they think of it as theirs. It's not, but they think of it as their like Marvel movie, and
Right.
you know, it's like really cool, and we're always waiting for the cyborgs. And
cool and disability, they don't think go together.
Yeah, and I'm like, we're here. We're already here. We are wearing the HAs, the pacemakers. I mean, I even count as cyborg anyone who augments your brain with some pharmaceuticals. You want to call yourself a cyborg? Go right ahead. Yeah, so it's been a victory. What about you? What about you, Khadijah, coming into self-determination?
You know, it was also a long journey. Again, because I was in the military, anybody who has a physical injury is described as broken.
No.
Yes. And I remember even before that, when I would get like random injuries, I had an old boyfriend, paramour, I don't know what you want to call him, dude I used to mess with, who would call me broke down when I got these injuries. But I have like chronic pain, chronic fatigue, didn't get diagnosed until I was 25, 26, 27, something like that. And definitely was taking medication to cover up symptoms, definitely did not want to seem like I needed any help. Definitely didn't want to claim the term disabled, and no one wanted me to acknowledge it. It was just like I had to just keep doing whatever it was that I was doing, and whatever pharmaceutical I had to take to cover up whatever pain or fatigue I was experiencing. That's what I would do, not acknowledge any kind of disability. So finding people who are like, hey, you need help.
Yeah.
Hey, here's a road to getting that help, and going down that road and receiving the help and understanding that there are like a whole lot of people who are like me. That was part of it. That was like the early part. And then the later part came as I was writing about that experience. And certainly, Jillian, you're very much an influence in that regard. Like understanding that it's not like a fault.
Yeah.
Right. or a thing to be hidden, but it's just like a fact of life and a human fact. And that probably more people are disabled than you think you do.
For sure. And I am so influenced by your poetics, Khadijah, because for a long time it felt to me like, oh my God, I have to write the poem that is about the disability. And guess what? I'm fucking bored. Because I already know the shit, and the disabled people already know the shit too. So
That's right.
and I read your work. Fearful Beloved was the first book where I was like, oh, rad. This is choice. Like to when to write a poem that is going directly into identity, and when to write a poem that is for the pleasure of the art. And guess what? You get to do both anytime you
That's
want,
right.
and like 500 more options too. And I'm really grateful to your work for that. Yeah, because it's not. I mean, I think people who don't claim disability are probably thinking, "Oh my God, I got to claim, and then I got to write my book. That's my disability book." But no, all you have to do is be like, "I'm disabled." That's it. We don't even need a diagnosis, like at all. We're not the
That's
doctor.
right.
Um,
And you
which,
don't have to disclose your diagnosis either.
yeah, which I
And
love.
it's
I love
right.
that. Yeah.
If you are Black, your book is Black. And you don't have to say, I'm writing a Black book. If you're
Right.
disabled, you don't have to say it. Here's my disability book. It's
Right.
just like, it just is.
It is. Yes. It is already. Yes.
So the pleasure of getting beyond baseline.
Yeah.
Oh
Huge.
man, I live for that freaking day.
We are not there yet. We are not there yet. No.
We're not there yet.
It helped me out a lot. I like thought I was very, very straight and like good Christian girl for many years, and in a relationship I still am in a relationship with a cis het man. And then whoa, I met a disabled person, and I was like, I got to change my entire ideology about just everything. And so that, as far as victory and self-determination, was pretty huge too. I had never been with a disabled person before.
Yeah.
Incredible. Because all of the guys that I've been with, sometimes it's like explaining to do and some like naming to do, and like it's just kind of a drag sometimes. And if you're with another disabled person, all that shit is gone because you're both like, hey, where are we at? How's your body? Like, what can we do?
Right.
What do we not want? What do we want, not want?
And how does that influence like your writing practice?
Well, oh my God, hugely, because you got a new beloved, you got a new muse. I mean, there's only so many poems that I can write imagining Zendaya as my muse, which I have done because she's disabled. Or for that matter, Hephaestus, which doesn't yield great love poems, to be honest. But yeah, then you've got someone in real life in the flesh and you want to impress them. I mean, I don't know how y'all write poems. I'm making assumptions. When I have a crush on a disabled person, I'm good in poems. I'm like, let's go. Let's write some poems. And it's just exciting in a brand new way. Yeah. Do you write poems for crushes, Khadijah?
I don't really. I have too many jobs and children and
Yeah.
people I take care of. So I don't like. I used to when I was dating.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a whole book. So.
Oh yeah, you do. You do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was enough.
It's never enough. It's never
I'm
enough.
tired now. I was telling Jillian the other day that I'm just like a boring hetero person. I've had enough adventures.
You are not boring. You are not. There's nothing boring about you.
Well, thank you for saying
that. Are we allowed
to
tell them that you used to be a performance artist?
I don't really talk about it much because I don't do it anymore because it takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So maybe we could talk about reframing an artist's practice around what your physical capacities are. And I just felt that it wasn't worth it to me to use up all my energy with the performance art. And I couldn't do my daily stuff. Like I literally had to take care of my son. This is when he was 7, 8, 9, 10, young enough to need a mom. Now he's 20. So it's a little bit different, but not as different because he still needs me because he's on the spectrum. So I have to decide where my energy is going to go. And it's going to go to the things that I love the most. And if I use it all on performance art, I just didn't love it as much as I love poetry and writing.
Yeah.
And my kid.
Yeah.
So maybe when I'm like retired or something, or my son has gained more independence, I might have time to sit and think about what that might look like later as a practice. But I would be like doing performance art, like I dragged the guitar down the streets of Atlanta for like 6 hours. But I couldn't move for like a week after that.
It was hot. It was spicy. Something was actually on fire in this picture that you sent me. Do you remember?
I don't remember. But the one I'm talking about, I had like a rotating light in front of my crotchular region. And like a white dress. And this is when I was like tiny and cute. And one of my friends was with me with like an amp on her back. The artist, oh God, I forgot her name now. Claire something. I'll find it and put it in the chat somewhere. But Claire's an amazing artist and musician. And I was just like screaming.
I love it. My go-to is Renee Cox. I'm sure probably everybody knows Renee Cox. Oh my God. And then Bill Shannon. Holy helmet. Like my 19-year-old self was watching Bill Shannon do dance. He uses crutches and he dances. And a documentary just came out called Crutch. I was like, this is fucking fun. So fun. But I want to say something about internalized ableism that just occurred to me real quick, because I'm doing performance art all the time. It's like my survival method for the plague. Like, I don't know how y'all are doing the plague, but I'm like, let's just make something. So I'm out making a video called Handle with Care this last week in my driveway. In the middle of making the video, I'm like, everything in my body hurts. My driveway is slanted. I'm kneeling on concrete. Why the fuck am I doing this? You know what I mean? And it was the internalized ableism. Didn't think it through. Didn't even ask myself, wait, is this video accessible to me that I'm making? Like, no, it's not accessible to me at all. Why am I making it? So it's kind of like really still programmed in my mind that all this ableism, like all this stuff about not asking those questions of myself, even as an artist, asking other artists how they engage with access, but then I'm not even asking it. So,
yeah, that is an excellent point and something I hadn't thought about either. But that internalized ableism is super real. It's like you just have to kind of check in with yourself and be like, who is expecting this of me? Whose standards are these? Why is this considered realistic? And why is what I can do, what I want to do, not realistic instead?
Totally.
Whatever the hell realistic shit is.
Totally.
Could we talk about community as like a segue to that? Because that was like one of the contentious ones that I think we had.
Oh yeah, it is. Yes, let's talk about community pleasures and pains.
I wrote down building what doesn't exist and recognizing what's always existed. And I was talking about like the pleasure in saying no to things and saying no not just to like what folks ask of you, but also refusal to accept what you're talking about, like the ableism of things. Like, that's actually, not how the kind of community that I want to be part of. I would like to shape it in this way, and recognizing your own agency as a person to say that your definition does matter as much as whatever famous person is so supposedly leading the community or that other folks are looking up to.
Yes. I'm thinking about your line, whatever famous person is leading the community, because so often in community, it's like we're all getting behind this person. And I'm like, no, I'm not, I'm not getting behind that person. Because I'm a contrarian and kind of just always not certain about assimilation, to be honest.
Mhm.
And usually the leader in the community is like, we're going in, we're assimilating because we want exactly what everyone else has, instead of the system is fucked. We can't assimilate it. It has to change, which is kind of more where I am. And that's hard because I love being in community with disabled people, and there are so few opportunities to be in community. Oh my God, I gotta do a brag real quick. I do an advertisement. Raymond Antrobus and I are teaching a workshop out of the UK in March for disabled writers only, disabled, deaf, broadly defined. There ain't many spots left, so look that up if you want to. Raymond is this incredible poet. The Perseverance is a book that he wrote. He's Jamaican and American and British. Actually, y'all check me. I don't know. But here's the point. This man took a Ted Hughes poem and made an erasure of the poem, and won the Ted Hughes Prize. Now that is,
Oh my word.
right?
That's bold. I love it.
Isn't that fantastic?
I love it. I love it with all of my soul. Yes.
Yes. Like, now that is the kind of change that I want, where the Ted Hughes Prize is like, you have destroyed our idol, Ted Hughes, in a brilliant poetic way. And we
Thank you.
Yes.
Right.
Ted Hughes poem was called like The Deaf School or something, and Raymond is deaf. So Raymond was like, no, we're not doing this. But so that's the kind of community I love. But then
do we want to talk about like how to deal with that kind of stuff, like those icky metaphors in old work? Like, do we care enough to talk about how we address that?
Yeah, I mean, sure. There's pleasure in cutting them out of books, I have found. Like, I actually am into a scissors thing, like actually scissors.
Yes.
And selling scissors to other disabled people, and using very nice scissors to cut out ableism from books, like actually cut it out, so that I can do something physical and be like, we're going to get rid of this out of this book.
I love that so much. I have a pair
Yeah.
of golden scissors, actually.
Totally, because otherwise I feel sort of like, I like the writer. Half the time I like the writer. Half the time the writer doesn't even know, It's like I want to keep reading the book, but I don't want the ableism in the book anymore. It has to go. So yeah, that's kind of where
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I feel similarly about books with, gendered and racist elements, although I tend to just like disengage completely.
Yeah.
Although the problematic one that I still like, one poem, is the Proof Rock poem.
Oh my gosh, how is it problematic? Is about.
He is problematic.
Oh, for
other
sure.
stuff is hella problematic.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can't just say I love this poem without acknowledging that.
Yeah.
And I almost wish I didn't know. But I had this really horrible professor who insisted on us reading the most sexist, most racist poem T.S. Eliot wrote, and like presenting it as like a paragon of craft. And Oh, my doctoral program was something that first year.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, so now I know that Elliot is a problem. I always like have to say something, but I don't even remember what I was talking about.
You
What
know
was I talking
what?
about?
Your Elliot is my Sabello. One time, I
Oh,
admitted to you.
that's the
I
other one.
admitted to you. I kind of like Sabello because in this one book, this woman just wanders off and becomes a falconeress, and I kind of dig that. And Khadijah was like, were we on the phone? I don't know, but you were like, no, 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 no. You were like, no, no, hell no. And I said, no, his books are so terrible. They're like
Yeah.
racist, ableist, kind of anti-Semitic. Like there's a
Hmm.
lot going on there.
A lot.
He's just like,
You're
no.
talking about Augie March, the Adventures of
Yes,
Augie March, right?
yes.
Yeah, I barely got through the first, like I got through the first couple pages and I was like, what the fuck am I reading? And then I flipped around and came across the brother like raping the
It's
mixed
bad.
race maid, and I was just like, I'm not fucking reading this shit.
Yeah,
Same
yeah,
class, by the way.
yeah.
And
No way, the same one as the T.S. Eliot one. Oh my God. Okay,
class. So I read Ellison's Invisible Man again instead, which
good.
he was Saul Bellows' protege.
I didn't
And
know. I didn't know that.
yes.
Okay. Problematic
And
mentors. We could have a whole nother session on that one.
that's another, you know, can we talk about the pleasure of gossip at some point? But
Yes.
T.S. Eliot and, well, not T.S. Eliot, but Ralph Ellison has really flat female characters. And I feel that that was inherited from Saul Bellow. You know, they're
Yeah.
accessories or vehicles for the male characters.
Or the plot,
You
because
know,
I'll give you this.
exactly.
It was getting boring in Augie March until she
Mhm.
up and went to Mexico and decided to take up with some hawks.
Right.
So I will grant you that it is very much like flat, kind of flat.
Yeah.
Who can we praise? We got these men up in this Zoom. I want to talk about Constance Merritt. Oh my God, Constance Merritt brings me pleasure. Queer, blonde, Episcopalian poet living in Kentucky. Her book Two Rooms slays me. Probably I learned the most about how to be a Crip. People are like, what's a Crip and what's a disabled person? A disabled person is like, I'm disabled, but I haven't read much yet, and I don't know about disability justice. And the word Crip makes me uncomfortable because it reminds me of gangs, which, by the way, was my position initially towards the word because I'm from Houston, so the Crips were a gang. Or it's too academic because the academics are always doing something like cripping this and cripping that, similar to queering this and queering that, right?
I'm from LA and my dad used to work for the city of Compton, so that is hilarious to me.
Oh, is it really? Yes, right. But
Yeah.
so it's taken me a while to get on the Crip bandwagon and be like, okay, this is the word, we're reclaiming it. I don't even know where I was going with that, actually.
We were talking about who we're gonna praise.
Oh yeah, Constance Merritt.
Yes.
Yeah. So her books are in 19. She's publishing in the 1990s, and there's not much of the living disabled because everybody's hiding it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Like the folks whose work I really love are not necessarily claiming it, and or they haven't published yet. Because a lot of times it's like my students.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I have been in that situation where you know someone's disabled and they don't, and you're like waiting, years go by. They're like, why do you think I think this way? I don't know, maybe you're autistic. Like you can't say it, but you want to say it. Should you? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's got to be up to them to disclose how they want to disclose,
Yeah.
and making sure that you as the authority figure, or however that means, are respecting and honoring that process that they have to go through for themselves. Because it's not an easy process in this very hostile to disabled people environment.
Completely. and respect for disabled people who are out there going, I would, but I cannot because of my job, actually, my livelihood. Yeah, that's a whole tricky thing. Like there must be pleasure too in the hidden claim where they can't do it because it puts them at risk for whatever reason. But we recognize y'all too. Like, in other words, I'm not trying to shame anyone for not claiming, because if you got a livelihood and other reasons totally justified, we are also with you. Yeah.
Yes, and if anything, it is our pleasure to keep doing what we can to create the kind of community that makes it powerful, acceptable, whatever that is. What's the right word? That makes it like
hot, smoking hot
to claim disability. Yes, we did talk about that in that little document. Like
hotness.
I
mean, Amy Mullins is disabled. First time I saw Amy Mullins in Matthew Barney's Cremaster series, I was like, the man is exoticizing this disabled woman for sure. But it doesn't even matter. She's divine. She's a divine being, and she looks great. And she has agency. She accepted the part in the art. But yeah, like having the recognition of like, oh, we have disabled celebrities. They're not on Vogue that often. Although Alice Wong was on Vogue on the cover.
Shut the front door.
Did you see that?
I didn't see it.
Yes. And
I love Rihanna's fashion shows with disabled people.
That would be awesome. Yes.
I want to. Could somebody find that link?
Yeah, we need to find that.
Alice Wong. I think Alexa is in there. My student Alexa Patrick, who is the queen of Google.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also had in Playboy, and I mean, this shows you that I actually read Playboy because I just do. For what it's worth, Hugh Hefner's dead, so maybe they will change. I don't know. If you're looking for an alternative, shout out to the Australia Journal, Archer. Archer is super hot, disabled, queer, trans, sex positive. But I mean, it's from Australia. It's going to cost you a penny. Where was I? Oh, Playboy. Yeah, Playboy has a Black disabled amputee on a beach last issue. Pull out centerfold. If Playboy can do this, why are other magazines having trouble with it is what I don't understand. Like, I don't get it.
I love imagining a future in which that is not an issue anymore. I really do. I feel like, okay, so we got about 8 minutes left.
Yeah.
I wonder if we should be asking if
we should, shouldn't we?
Any questions? Thank you, Alexa. She found the link for it.
Thank you very much.
A student does have their hand raised on the side. This is Lance talking. So I can unmute them so they can ask their question.
Okay. Felice? We can't hear you. You unmuted. I mean, you're muted. If you want to type it into the chat, you could also do that.
Hi, actually, it was a mistake. See, you both have been so wonderful in this discussion. And so I'm going to think of a question on the cuff. Oh. Maybe you could talk about what you see in terms of your conversation and the future. You touched on it a little bit, but maybe you can go into a little bit more detail. Just what, given that we're going into a new transition politically and everything that's happening, maybe just a thumbnail of kind of where you see things going in terms of everything that you mentioned so far. That's kind of broad, but however you may want to approach it.
Sure. Thank you, Felice. I'm going to ask the cyborg Jillian Weise to start because I know that you are much more informed than I am, though I do have a couple of thoughts.
Well, I just want to say, Felice, this is a question that is so sophisticated. I am in heaven right now because disabled people don't get asked about the future. We just routinely do not. We get asked, how do I make it accessible? That's like the number one. And so I think because disabled people spend so much time teaching other people about access, we don't get to think about the future. Weird futures, wild futures, futures unimaginable because we're either thinking about teaching someone or how are we going to pay for the thing, like the medication, or how are we going to get the thing we need. So I see a beautiful future, but it's not soon. It's not soon is the problem. I want the future where disabled people can have conflicting opinions and not be a monolith. I feel like right now we need to be a monolith kind of because we kind of need to survive like a plague. So it behooves us to stick together. But I want reviews by disabled people in the New York Times of other disabled people's work, be it art, writing, performance. And I don't want all those reviews to be positive. I want some actual cultural criticism within disability culture. So that's one like fun thing that kind of is circular back to the fight that would be wonderful because right now it feels like I have to love just anything any disabled person ever does. And quite frankly, I don't, but I have to pretend like I do. So yeah, what are you thinking, Khadijah?
I'm thinking my son is coming downstairs to get snacks in the kitchen. And speaking of that, like because I am a parent, you know, I think about a future in which he is allowed to be himself as he is fully without, you know, thinking about access. Like he can just go to a place and know that it is accessible to him. If he needs to stem, if he needs to go somewhere quietly, he doesn't have to like explain it. He doesn't like have to flash a, you know, a medical badge or something. You know, he can be somewhere without, you know, police thinking that he's gonna do something scary because he's a large Black man, you know, or a future in which I can say, you know, I'm tired. Like I literally have negative energy. So this is the deadline, but here's what my energy is. So the deadline's gonna have to move. And that not being an issue. Although I feel like I'm approaching that future right now.
Yeah.
So I love the idea of further imagining. I feel like I may not be there yet because I'm so mired in the practical.
Yeah.
But I have had that seed planted in me today. So I'm going to have fun imagining that. I would love a future in which people self-interrogate.
Yes.
So if someone's correcting you or you notice an issue, instead of reacting in a manner that's defensive, oh yeah, you're right, let me fix that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to like be an insecurity thing.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, let me fix it. And can you imagine how fast we would evolve as human beings?
Oh my God. Yes. And this is, I don't know, I think it's because of self-interrogation and how much of that happens in kink. But I want a future full of disabled dominatrixes, specifically women identifying disabled dominatrixes, because we are hard to find. And partially, I mean, I'm disclosing to you now that I very much feel it in my soul that I am a dom. But partially it's because it's dangerous in sex work to say I'm disabled. Like dangerous. Like your clients don't need to know that, right? And I'm not pro. So there's that. I'm lifestyle dom. But I don't know. I just feel like disabled people occupy a submissive position, not on purpose, but in non-disabled people's minds. And that's got it. I want that for the future. I want that flip for the future. I want it to be like, oh, well, we don't know. This person might be a dom, a sub, a switch. Who knows? Like instead of we assume the less thing, you know?
Ooh, what if we like deleted assumption and ascribing things to people automatically just based on appearance?
Yes.
What if we did that?
Wouldn't that be
I
nice?
feel like that it's not. I would love for those kinds of thoughts to not be considered naive, but to be considered actionable.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
I think that's a good place to leave it.
Okay.
It's 5:59 where I'm at.
Yeah, I don't even know. It's 8 p.m. I'm about to have some dinner, but I loved hanging out with you all. And Khadijah,
Same
this
here.
was fucking fun as
Yes.
usual. I hope I get to see you in real life in 2021 is my wish.
too.
I'm putting it out there.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. Period.
Period. Yes.
Thank you so much for letting us sit in on your friendship. I think that's a really generous thing to offer people. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you for giving us this space, and thank everybody for attending.
Yeah. Thank
Have
you.
a good night, y'all.
Thank you, Mac and Rory.
Yes, thank you,
Rory.
Mike and Roy. Appreciate y'all.
We'll take a little break in our workshop programming, and we'll be back with a reading a little bit later tonight. For those of you joining on YouTube, thank you. We'll be offering more programming tomorrow, so please be sure to check our website. Have a good evening, everyone.